Okay, so we just got through reassembling our driver's side brake caliper. Went together pretty easily, nothing crazy. 4 O-rings, 4 pistons, 4 dust shields, all put in, and then our bleeder screws went on. The only thing I would want to encourage people to do before they get into doing this, have gloves or understand your hands are going to get covered in brake fluid. Because when you're putting your O-rings in, you want to lubricate them first, usually with the system fluid that it's going to be utilizing. So you're going to use brake fluid, and if you don't know, brake fluid is very caustic, and sometimes it even kind of tingles when you get it on your skin. So if I had a pair of gloves, I would use them. I don't, so I'm just going to be adamant about keeping my hands clean and wiping them off. But I like to dip the O-ring, get it all lubed up, push it in, and then do the same thing with the pistons and slide them in. So without too much rambling, let's get to assembling the caliper. Alright, so getting into the caliper, got our 4 pistons, our 4 O-rings, and our 4 dust shields. We'll save these for later, we don't actually need these right now. That can be after we bleed the brakes. And then our 2 bleeders. What I'll start doing is I'm going to take the O-rings, dip them in a little bit of fluid, make sure they're nice and oiled up. Come over to the caliper, I'll pinch it a little bit, and I'll just get it started, and I'll slowly work the O-ring in. And sometimes they don't play nice, but get them to roll in to the cylinder. So we'll just hammer these out. Try to work so you can see it. Pretty easy. Now we've got all 4 O-rings in, so the calipers, the pistons will be sealed. Definitely make sure to keep a roll of rags close by so you can wipe stuff down. I did it both ways, but I like to put the dust boot on first. Make sure it's seated. It's easier that way. And then you can kind of hold the dust boot. Not that you really need to lubricate the bottom, but there's extra lube on there. And kind of slosh your finger around. Lube up the cylinder nice and good. It should slide right in. Now it's resting on the O-ring. Just gonna try to push it in. Work it down past that O-ring. And if you have one of the expansion tools, it'd probably be really easy. But I find if I push my hand in and I just push with the fat, it'll slide right to the bottom. And as you can see, you get the dust boot, still just a little loose. I find if you start at the bottom and then slowly walk it on, because there's some sort of metal band inside the dust boot that actually just grabs onto this shoulder. So I start at the bottom and then slowly massage it in. Nice little shiatsu action going on right there. And then work it up to the top. I'm not 100% if it's all the way seated or not. So I have a clamp with a nice piece of rubber over the foot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just get the clamp just on the edge, like so. I'll tighten down on the clamp and just make sure that it's pushed down as far as I can get it to go. And I mean, it's not coming off, so make sure you use something with rubber, or put like a towel in between it so you don't scratch your powder, assuming you got them powder coated. And that's pretty much the process for getting a piston in. So I'm going to rifle through the rest of them, and we'll get on to doing the rear calipers. If I wasn't, so the last one put on, if I wasn't clear before, what I was doing is with the O-ring, sorry, the dust boot, right? So the dust boot is a tight fit around this shoulder. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the bottom on first, and then walking it around. So the last part to get pushed down is here. So ideally, the only place I have to push down is this edge. And I have a nice flat spot where I can push down on. So I'm going to take my towel, put my quick clamp just on the upper edge of the dust boot. I'll tighten down on it, and then I'll just rock the clamp just a little bit, which will cause it to push up on. With that, all of the dust boots are in. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the bleeders. And for that, I'll just need a 7/16 wrench and tighten these down, and then the fronts are ready to go in the car. And just a long, lengthy brake bleeding process. There you have it. Fronts are done. So now that we got the fronts done, we're at the much anticipated rear brake calipers. It was honestly like way more work than it should have been to figure out how to do it. But now that I know how to do it, it's really easy to get these calipers apart. It's similar to traditional calipers, but Ford came up with this crazy little spring mechanism that I went through the troubles of designing my own tool just to pull the calipers apart. I have a big write-up on it on the Focus RS forum. So if anybody else wants to do this, you'll have these videos to help you put them back together and take them apart per the last video. But also my write-up on how I got to where I am. And I am super stoked to get these onto the car. So, again, without too much more rambling, I'm gonna work through putting one of them back together, and then I'll video the other one so I know what I'm talking about when I record it for you. So we just got ourselves through the rear driver's side caliper. Took a little bit longer than expected. Really just found another head scratcher. The problem that I faced was I was putting the dust boot back in for the lever arm, and I found this extra little washer seal, and I had no idea where it was. I was combing through all my pictures, combing through a bunch of drawings, trying to find where this seal went, and I couldn't find it. So I dove into my pile of old seals from when I took them apart. Still couldn't find the seal. So maybe I threw it away. Then I looked at the original boot seal that came with it, and it's different than the new one. So again, no information out there on how to put it together. I don't know if this is right, but to me, it looks like if I take this new little seal and I place it on top of this one, it almost gets me to be the same as the original one that came off of the car. So it's slightly different. I'm gonna guess it's a two-piece design. I have no idea if I'm right, but I'm pretty sure this is how it would go. If I could find some drawings or something that backs me up, that'd be great, but I can't. So I take this little boot. It's got a slight taper to it. I'm sure you cannot see it, right? So it's got a slight taper to it. It's got like a double groove piece on the top. So I'm going to be putting that directly on top of the dust boot for the lever arm. Other than that, the caliper went back together pretty smooth and easy, other than having to figure out how to mess around with that and get that all apart. So without further ado, let's start putting this one back together, because this is the last one to go together. And then probably tomorrow I'll start bleeding the brakes and be able to take the car down off the lift. But after this, I'm done for the night. All right, so to begin, I started with the lever arm in the back, since that was the biggest pain to get through. Let's see. Get your lever arm. I packed this area with some grease, just some general multi-purpose grease. I did verify that it's good up to 450 degrees. If I get my brakes that hot, I'm probably melting the powder coat off of them. So I'm just packing it full of grease. There was grease on there, so I'm putting grease back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that little boot that I just talked about. I'll cut to some pictures. And I'm going to slide that on over the bottom, making sure not to roll it over like I currently am. Get it to lay nice and flat. It's going to scrape all of the grease that's extra. As you get closer to this end, as you push up, twist it, because I kind of shaved a little bit of the rubber off on the other one because I just pushed it on. So got some extra grease. Wipe it over there if we need it. So we'll push that one up to the top. Then we'll take the other one. Same thing, push it all the way up. Now this assembly, and we'll put a little bit of grease on the whole thing, why not? It's a moving surface. We'll just get it all nice and lubed up, because this arm doesn't see oil, doesn't see brake fluid, because the screw has an O-ring on it, and it seals this chamber it seals the chamber to this lever arm off with this O-ring. So there's no contamination. Get it all lined up. We just press it in. It does have a little bit of sponginess to it. But now that we have that in, we want to make sure we have our brake lever lined up, because we're going to take our pin, our keyed pin, we're going to put it into the hole. And we just want to make sure that it lands between those two stops on the lever arm. Now, I'm going to step off camera to hammer this in, but really all I'm doing is I'm putting it on a surface. If I had a press, I would do it with a press, but I'm going to put it flat on a surface with a cloth or something underneath it, and I'm just going to hammer it in with like a ball peen. Nothing crazy. So I'll be right back. So now you can see I hammered the pin back in. Looks like I bent it a little bit, so it'll be fine. Bent it back in. Now it can only turn the 30 degrees or whatever it is. So it is crucial that you don't do it out of clock, otherwise you have to drive the pin back out. Now we have the pin in. We can progress further and we can start inserting all of our pieces. I think I'll start with the O-ring, same as the fronts. Get it coated in oil. Wipe my fingers off. And just the same deal. I'll push one side in and use 2 fingers. One to hold it, the other one to work it in. Now you have this little key. I'll drop down in. Let's see if we can get it to view it. So I'll flash to that photo. I'm going to take our screw mechanism. I actually haven't swapped out the O-ring yet, so to start, grab our brass pick. This is one of those times you want to make sure you're using a brass pick, because brass won't scratch the metal. If you use a steel pick, most little pick kits come in, you can damage this, and this is a moving surface inside of the caliper. So grab our new O-ring, push it on, just a little bit of oil to hydrate it. Then we're going to take our screw, and you see that it's got that cutout. Take the cutout, put it in, and that cutout lines up with that key. So when that key pushes against the lever arm, it should cause the, probably can't see it too much, but it just very little causes the screw to move up and down, which is what makes your parking brake work. So we got that. Next I'm going to take my thrust washer, over the screw. That's going to sit all the way down at the bottom. Next I'll take my spring, put it in there, and now we're on to this abomination of a spring clip. I'm going to use my fancy tool I designed. I really don't know how else you would do this without having something similar or a perfect socket. I couldn't find a socket that did what this tool does, especially for putting it back in. So the tool, you see me just load it up. I line up the tabs with the individual brass tabs, brass rods. Put it in. As simple as that. Now it sits flush and it's ready to be inserted. I have this diameter pretty well dialed in that it locates it in the center. But then all you do is you push down on the whole assembly, and then eventually this will bottom out in the brake, and you push in on this plunger, and it causes the spring clip to come out and land inside of the caliper. So we will load. A little bit of a snug fit. So now that sits, and you see how it just bottoms out just like that. Now I do is I take my plunger. So the plunger is going to sit on top of the spring retainer. I'm going to grab a little rag or something of the sort and just use it to prevent myself from destroying my brakes that I just got done. Now I'm going to push down. That drives out the spring clip, but now I need to grab these two little tabs and just pick up with my fingers. Come on. Ah, we suck. We did not get it. It's okay. I would have wished I could have done this in one shot and had it all come out good, but I'm not gonna lie, it didn't happen. That's okay, we reload the tool. Get it to go in. Plunger in. There it is. Now you can see that it's in there. We're not sure if it's fully seated or not. So I'm gonna take the plunger without the body, put the plunger over it. Actually, instead of using my hands like a barbarian, I'm just gonna make sure to push the spring clip down so it gives the teeth a chance to spring out. Now I'm pretty certain that all of the teeth in there are all seated. I'm pretty happy with that. So now we will roll into grabbing our piston. Nice and clean. Grab our new dust boot. There's two grooves. Make sure you get the dust boot all the way down to that second groove. Like so. There we go. Now we're going to put it in. And this is different than the fronts because it's got this little screw mechanism that mates with the screw that we put in earlier. So we can put it in. We get it started by twisting in. Now you're supposed to have a special tool for doing these. I don't have one at my house. So I'm going to use my pliers because I'm an animal. And so you have to simultaneously push and twist to get this to work. It'll be a little difficult because of getting it to start past the O-ring, but we'll just go nice and smooth and slow so as to not damage our O-ring. As you can see, the piston is slowly working its way in. Boom, now we're down. Grab our dust boot. I'm starting it from the back. I'm just working my way around and pulling it onto the caliper. Last little things, we're going to take our bleeder, add our bleeder, 10 millimeter, because these were probably made in Germany. Bleeders on, these little rubber guides. I just put a little bit of grease on them, get them nice and slippery. And I start at an angle and I'll slowly work it into the caliper. Get a little twist and then they're seated. They're not new ones, they're the original ones, they're rubber, they're fine. Same thing. Little twist. There we go. Let's see. Is that all? Oh, we gotta add the brake line, rear passenger. Probably didn't need to verify that, but you never know. Not actually sure which wrench size this is. Looks kind of like a 14 millimeter, but I don't have one in front of me, and I'm probably just going to use a pair of not channel locks, a crescent wrench to tighten that down. Ooh, the spring. Where's our little spring? Well, it appears as if I misplaced the spring, so I'm gonna try to find that, and we'll be back momentarily. All right, so it appears that I did in fact misplace my spring for my rear passenger, and this is my rear driver. I pulled the spring off so I could show you how I put it on. I'm going to hook the reverse direction bend into the pin like so, and I'm sure it'll find its home as I get this other end in. I'm just going to grab a pair of linesmen. I'm sure there's an electrician out there screaming at me. And I'm going to bend, try not to eject this thing into me. Like so. So it hooks in. It hooks in the other end, and then that is what returns your parking brake to the neutral position, the lowered position, what have you. But I think that concludes building a front and a rear for a Focus RS. I'm sure this applies to STs and other Focuses of a similar model. If people that don't have RSs and STs are getting them powder coated, this should work for you, but I do not know other than RS brakes that operate like this. I'm sure this is going to be another long video, so thanks for sticking around. I hope this information was helpful, and we'll have some Mazda updates coming to you soon. Thanks for hanging around.